This is Heart of the Matter.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Cody Holyoke. When two teams take the field for a competition, typically everyone knows the rules and everyone's watching the clock. They know when the game's going to end. It's what we saw in Missouri when Governor Mike Kehoe called state lawmakers back to Jefferson City to pass a stadium incentive package for the Chiefs and Royals before June 30th, when Kansas deals were supposed to run out.
And this just isn't about football and baseball. As I said before, this is about economic development.
The governor launched a Hail Mary to beat the clock, and in days he had signed a deal promising the Chiefs and Royals state-issued bonds to cover up to 50% of the cost of new stadiums. They thought they had it well in hand before the deadline for the teams to either choose or lose the Kansas Star Bonds deal, offering up to 70% of the costs. But come to find out, it's not really much of a deadline at all. Baked into the Kansas proposal is a clause saying that the state's Legislative Coordinating Council, or LCC, could push the deadline another year to next June 30th, if need be. The Royals and Chiefs reached out to Senate President Ty Masterson asking for more time. He tells me a year won't cut it. He wants the teams to make up their minds soon.
If they have a deal or have an interest in a deal, I expect them to come back to us within the next 60, 90 days. What's kind of unified is both the speaker and myself are not real big on running through another legislative session with this hanging over everybody's head. We need to figure, are we in, are we out? Let's move on.
Masterson and the other LCC members meet Monday to consider the team's requests, all while leaders and taxpayers in Kansas and Missouri are left holding the ball, wondering when this saga will end and decisions will be made. Let's discuss with our roundtable of journalists. Please welcome back Brian Ellison, host contributor with KCUR, and KMBC9 political reporter Michael Mahoney. Senator Masterson told me, especially if they got a proposal in late June, the LCC couldn't have possibly reviewed this and approved this by June 30th, which was the original deadline. He says lawmakers need more time, but as we just heard, there's a clock on this gesture.
Well, there's a clock on this gesture, and as Senator Masterson said in there, they don't want to hang it out into the next session. And the other thing is there is no plan right now from either the Chiefs or the Royals if they would elect to go to Kansas. There's no plan for a specific stadium. It's all designed. It's very much up in the air.
Yeah, and of course this is not really new. This has been going on for more than a year, with the teams really giving very little indication of what their preferred choices are. Look at the choices they've got, though. On the Kansas side, the 70% Star bonds. On the Missouri side, 50% funding from the state, bonds that would be funded by the taxes collected on their activities. We're talking billions of dollars in either case, and the teams are incredibly tight-lipped about what they would prefer.
Yeah, we heard from Mayor Quinton Lucas talking about this, just calling this kind of the embodiment of the border war. I wanted to play something else that Senator Masterson told me about this back and forth, kind of will they, won't they? Let's hear that right now.
All we wanted to understand is, are there authentic conversations going on? Is there a real possibility? I understand it may still be 50-50, but are we in the game, or are we just a pawn in a negotiation for Missouri?
Right, so he's kind of wondering, leadership is wondering, how is this going to play on? That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah, the billion-dollar question, actually, in this case. And, as we were talking before we went on the air, yes, both these sports teams are playing both these states off one another. That's how this game works. And to what the mayor said, yeah, it is the embodiment of a renewed border war.
You know, sports teams are community institutions. They build a lot of community morale and pride, but they also are businesses. And in this case, we're really seeing that. I have to say, you should pay attention to that letter that the Chiefs wrote to Ty Masterson and the other legislative leaders, though. He waxes pretty poetic about the plans that could happen in Kansas, a domed stadium, a new headquarters, a mixed-use development around the stadium. It is not as though the Chiefs haven't given thought to what it would look like if the team were to move across the state line.
Devil's advocate, though, they also don't want to sour that deal before they make a decision.
Well, and they don't want to give up on Missouri. At the same time they wrote the letter, they're making a call to the Missouri legislative leaders saying, don't worry, we're still talking to you too.
Yeah. They're kind of in the driver's seat, right? Because the question is how long until the patience runs thin, but I mean, this is, as you said, billions and billions of dollars at stake.
The teams being in the driver's seat?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, without question on that. It's both states are going to have to react to what these teams decide.
I do want to mention, one of the key players last year when it came to the stadium saga in Jackson County was County Executive Frank White. He's now facing a recall. The signatures are in. What should we watch for moving forward, do you think, Brian?
Well, you're right. The signatures came in. They took a long time to get in, but they've now been certified. I think the first thing to watch for will be when the county legislature schedules this election. They have to do it within 60 days, but there seems to be the possibility that Frank White himself could have an influence on that process with what he vetoes or not as they set up the election. In the long run, the county charter requires that a Democrat replace a Democrat, so there's a limited range of choices for who could replace him. At the same time, whoever the county legislature chooses has the rest of the term through 2026 to do what they will do.
And the other thing to remember here, I think, fellows, is the fact that whatever happens with the turmoil of the recall election is or could, I think, affect any sort of decisions by Jackson County in terms of an election on any sort of election or any sort of electoral decision on the stadiums. Right. Because it's all going to be happening possibly at the simultaneously.
You could have this where it overlaps, right?
That's exactly right. Now, I think a key question, though, is a lot of media, a lot of politicians pay a lot of attention to all the conflict in the Jackson County legislature. What we don't know yet, and we won't know until that recall election, is whether voters care as much about Frank White's performance and the controversies there have been as his fellow legislators and those who signed the petition do.
Right. Yep. And we're certainly going to see what happens, but we've heard from taxpayers and viewers alike saying, you know, when we had our property assessments go up sky high and we had this issue with the stadiums, it's wearing on them, and we're seeing that out there. All right, we'll leave it there for now. Michael Mahoney, Brian Ellison, thank you so much. KMBC News and Heart of the Matter have been on this stadium saga from the start, watching new developments and what key decisions could mean for you. We'll keep you up to date on air and online at KMBC.com.